What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. Jimmy Smith, Ryan Moody, our MMA show. We're not very political, okay? So we're just going to get into the beginning of this. I mean, the reality is Linda McMahon is worth $1.5 billion. We know that her family makes their money from pro wrestling. She's also chair of Trump's Super PAC. We also know that they are planning to raise hundreds of million dollars to get Trump reelected in Florida. And, of course, WWE was probably going to default on its $200 million a year contract with Fox. Those are just kind of some happen chance things that happen. But if we can agree to that general context and ask ourselves, but how does this benefit us, which is all these people do anyway, you know, what can you do for me? They sneak in to the Florida Division of Emergency Management the addition of essential services, which included people that were genuinely needed, and I find myself amazed, were left out in the first place, which would be services and programs addressing mental health, substance abuse, theme park and entertainment employees, basically zookeepers, and then tightly yet tantalizingly down at the bottom, it says employees of professional sports and media production with a national audience, including any athletes, entertainers, production team, executive team, media team, and any others necessary to facilitate including services supporting such production only if the location is closed to the general public. Now, I'm sure someone's asking me to shut up and when's Jimmy going to talk. I do want to also say, and I don't know if Jimmy knows this or not, there has been one confirmed employee of the WWE that has contracted it. They've quarantined said individual, and I think we all know that if someone does come down with it, all of this goes away. I don't think they would continue to do it. It is, among other things, a massive conflict of interest, but it is what we have to deal with. So, Jimmy, I will offer to you, how fast can you help build Fight Island?
Yeah, look, we can bitch and complain all we want about the governor's decision, right? And I've read a lot of things online, editorial pieces that do throw him under the bus for this and other boneheaded decisions about the situation we find ourselves in. The UFC, which is the point we're looking at, that's not their problem. It's not their job to regulate where they can and can't go. That's up to the states. So the big thing that stands out to me is this was the diffusion of responsibility that Dana needed, that he didn't get from California, that he can get in Florida. Meaning, and I did my own YouTube video, my personal thoughts about, UFC in California. And what I said was, as soon as you try to get around regulation, it's all on you, right? As soon as California, the state of California says, we don't want this show here because of this disease and all these things, and you say, okay, we're going to go to tribal land to get around that, all the risk is on you. This statement from the state of Florida, if someone gets ill or there's a problem, you can say, call your governor. We didn't greenlight this thing, you did. And that's exactly what Dana White and the UFC need, is as soon as a government agency, be it the state, be it the federal government, whatever it is, says, okay, we're greenlighting these events, something bad happens, Dana can say, it's not on me, call the governor's office. And he's right. It's not up to him to regulate where his event can and cannot go. Right? That's up to state regulatory agencies. So this is exactly the kind of diffused responsibility that WWE and the UFC and boxing promotions and anybody who takes advantage of this, it's going to be hard, obviously, for any of the stick and ball sports, the major leagues, to say, okay, we're going to do everything from Florida. You can't do that. To take advantage of this, that's exactly what they need, is this kind of decision. Now, the flip side is most MMA fans believed the buck stopped at Dana White. Well, what we learned from the California fiasco is, nope. There are people above Dana at ESPN and Disney who can pull the plug in 2 seconds if they feel like it. So the question now becomes, yes, Dana, I'm sure, wants to now have a show in Florida. The UFC wants to have a show in Florida. Does Disney and ESPN, Disney, let's just say, because they're at the top of the food chain, do they want the heat? If they don't mind the heat, meaning, look, the governor greenlit it. It's not up to us. They regulated it. They said it was okay, so we're going to do it. If they can take the heat, the UFC will have a show in Florida. I really believe that. So everything you said in your opening statement is 100% correct about why this is coming about and whether or not it's a good idea and it's corrupt and all these things. Great. All that falls on the governor, not necessarily the individual promotions that will take advantage of this ruling. That's exactly what Dana wants.
You know what would make this so much better?
I can't wait to hear this.
Imagine if, I'm just laying out the scenario because you did throw a lot of negatives in there, but imagine if we could paint a positive with this. What if a Florida resident was employed again because of this issue? Do you know any good MMA commentators that live close to Florida?
John Anik. Oh yeah.
No.
Nailed it. Lives in Boca Raton. Lives in Boca.
What's the other guy that kind of looks like Joe Rogan? What's his name?
Everybody looks like Joe Rogan. Apparently.
No, this guy sounds like Joe Rogan too.
He sounds like Ryan Moody too.
Yes.
Apparently he sounds like could be Ryan Moody. Ryan, you could jump in there. No one would have any idea, apparently, from the comments we get. Apparently we sound exactly the same.
It's an audio. Yeah, except I save a lot of money.
I wouldn't demand.
Yeah, you could.
Look, here's
so
the
wait
deal.
A second.
In a couple,
you don't need transportation either, Jimmy. This is all coming up Millhouse.
I could walk, depending on where it was. Anyway, it's funny. I had people ask me, would I jump in and do an event? And I was talking to Laura Sanko, she's a friend of mine, and would she do an event? Would you do an event? Would you do the events? Here's the deal. I was supposed to do Submission Underground for Chael out in Portland, and I couldn't do it because of the travel. It sent me through New York, which was really dangerous. And then I don't have anywhere to quarantine. I don't have anywhere to go for the 2 weeks when I come back. So what it would require is, let's say, hypothetically, I'm totally serious. The UFC called me right now and, hey, we're doing shows in Florida. Do you mind doing a stint for us? Okay, if you're doing however many back-to-back, you got to put me up somewhere. Right? Okay, book me in a hotel near the event, and I'll stay there for 6 months and do all these events for you back to back to back to back. I have to quarantine myself. I got to protect my family. That's the hard part, is not doing the event. Okay, maybe you get sick, maybe you don't, but you have to then remove yourself from everybody afterward to make sure I'm okay. So that would be my issues. Okay, you got to put me up somewhere though. My house is too small to just quarantine myself in a room. So, that would be the issue. To protect myself and my family, you'd have to quarantine yourself. And that's a decision I've talked to all the production people I know who are in the business I used to be in. That's their concern. Where do I go when I get home? I got to stay in the garage straight up to make sure, nothing happens. So that's the decision everybody has to make.
I can almost picture Dana White as Late Christmas saying, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Look, Dana White has a million options when it comes to commentary. He doesn't have to go to the guy who doesn't work there anymore. Let's be honest, he doesn't have to go, oh my God, we have no options. Let's go with the guy who worked for us for a year. No. So I'm not expecting a phone call or anything like that. I mean, he has plenty of options when it comes to commentary, and they're all happy to do it. And they all are in a situation where they can probably afford to stay in a hotel for however long it is to self-quarantine and things like that. So I'm not worried about Dana White's options when it comes to commentary.
I guess the schmo would be available since we're doing some housekeeping. We always make fun of him, apparently. I also want to just bring up, other than the jabs we took at the schmo that we never figured out, there has been an undertone in the comment section.
Nice enough guy, by the way. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's never interviewed me, but nice enough guy when he's not, it's kind of a shtick, the schmo or whatever. But when you actually speak to the guy, he's, decent guy. I like him.
When he's not the character and he's around Helen.
I
had to deal with him a couple times myself. I didn't recognize him. The first time I saw him not as the schmo, I didn't know it was him.
Yeah.
And then I, was like, oh. Yeah, but he plays it very, very well. Close guarded stick. So there's been an undertone in the videos, in the comment section, because we obviously don't have an undertone in the videos, that we were somehow happy, that we were somehow celebrating the closure of the UFC events, which I don't know where that context came from. I mean, I think we were probably being advocates for responsibility, and we still are. When we talk about this, you use the term, diffused responsibility. It certainly is.
Right.
Do you feel
and I don't
like...
mean that as I don't mean that as an insult to Dana. I'm not saying like he wants a way out. It's not his call whether or not something's legal or not. Or, if the regulatory agency says you can go 70 miles an hour, you'd be a fool to go 65. We don't set the speed limit. So I don't mean this for fans that hear this and go, oh, that I'm dogging Dana or something. If the state says you can do it, you'd be a fool not to do it. And Dana would be a fool not to do it. It's when Dana tried to go around regulation, you and I were skeptical of that decision. That's the deal. Him trying to jump the gun and get around the California's regulations, that we thought, oh, you're putting a lot on yourself. You're putting a lot on the sport. I don't know if that's a good idea. So people have an interpretation of what we're saying that I don't think is valid.
I think the best way to look at that is if he had not been so defiant, if he had not so been aggressive in attempting to get events put on, and literally had just waited a handful of days, it is so much easier to say we are going to travel to the land of opportunity, which is now Florida, that is going to let us put on this fight, as opposed to we are creating those opportunities by building an island or finding tribal land or going and searching these things out. In a situation like this, we've never seen anything like this. We don't know what the best course of action is, but we do know what public perception is. And there is continued public perception negatively against trying to create these situations that citizens are essentially told, hey, don't do. But as you said, when you have this presented now, this essentially was what he waited for. The eligibility of someone above him to say, yeah, this is okay. It just had to be that right situation. And who would have known it would have came along? I mean, I hate to say it, if it had came along it did come along last week. It came along on, from what I read, April 9th. But if it was out on April 9th, then we could definitely be looking at, a complete card in just a matter of days, instead of talking about what your state's done and signed away, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's the green light he needed. It takes all the heat off. It puts a lot of heat on the governor. It really does. And he's received a lot of criticism for stuff he's done up to this point. But it takes the criticism off of him and puts it on the governor. Now, once again, I'll go back to it. Does Disney still want the heat? Will there be some? There'll be some people who think the UFC still shouldn't do this. It's not safe, all these things. But I find it hard to believe they can't just go, hey, look, they said yes, so we're doing it. So that's the last step is Disney signing off on it. And I think they will, now that they have a state willing to play ball. I really think they will, because all that heat's on him. And it should be. It should be.
Only we still had the Fox agreement, all these problems would have been solved, Jimmy.
Okay. Seriously. If they were still on Fox Studios are in LA. Fox Studios are in I used to do shows there. They're in Los Angeles, right outside Culver City. Do you really want the state of California pissed at you? If you are a major media outlet, Fox, Disney, I don't care, Sony Studios are in Culver City, do you really want the headaches? Universal of California going, we're pissed at you. You damaged your relationship with the state of California, where a lot of business gets done, where a lot of film shoots still happens, where all the major studios are, all the animation houses are in California, and you piss them off? I happen to disagree with you. I think any major partner, Fox, Disney, Universal, Sony, whoever you're with, would have responded to that heat in a similar way. I don't think Fox would have wanted the headaches. I don't think any partner would have wanted the headaches of having the governor of California going, hey, we don't want you to hold this event. And you're going to thumb your nose in their face? I really think a lot of partners would react the same way, not just Disney.
I've yet to see Fox react. I mean, clearly they're gonna run SmackDown, if not next Friday, this upcoming Friday. So I haven't seen Fox react to this negatively. I think if anything, if it was in Florida and you still had Fox there, you know, and maybe even with the ESPN deal, you sit there and you have, I would feel a lot better if this was a joint venture between UFC and WWE. You know, I don't want to, get it in the Clorox Center, right? You know, you basically need the same things. The filming is very similar as far as the camera placement. Let's try to bring these two together, right? Have one building that's universally cleaned, right? Lockers, everything you need essentially for both systems are there in place. Keep it all together. Try to keep everything as close-knit as possible. Limit as much outside exposure as you can. If it was on Fox with both of them, they could probably just, run them back to back. But it does seem like I would hope that we could, because I mean, honestly, no disrespect to your state, but I can't imagine a worse state to be doing this in. Especially with the age demographic in Florida, a lot of people vacation, snowbirds. I mean, I deal with snowbirds in my line of business all day. I can't tell you the frantic calls I've been getting where they want to come back up my way and can't leave because they're scared to death. So, it just doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like the fans need to have any priority of this. Get it all in the same building, get it filmed, show it to us. I don't know if it's going to be a guilty pleasure at this point, right? Because, part of me says we shouldn't be doing this, but the other part has the remote in hand, right? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this goes. But yeah, I guess the ones that we see, we've mentioned this several times. The moral distractions that we have from this do not outweigh our obligation to view it. But I will wonder how many people will say, this shouldn't be happening, I'm not going to support it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a weird position, as you know, where I'll be covering it, on SiriusXM, probably doing the post-fight show and stuff like that. I can't not. And to me, I wouldn't morally not watch this show simply because the regulation was there. The regulators of the state said, yes, you can have the show. Is that a smart move? I don't know. We're not going to know once again for a little while after the show happens. But it's much less than, this state won't allow us to do it. Okay, we're going to go around it and do it on tribal land and do that. They're not trying to get around regulation. They are going to a state where it is allowed. It's a very different, to me, moral step than we're going to have a show where it's not allowed and we're going to consciously get around regulation. That's a different step to me. So I would have much less. I mean, I don't have a choice anyway, but I would have much less of an issue watching a show. I can get mad at Governor DeSantis all day. I can get mad at the state of Florida all day, but that's who I'd be mad about. Not Dana White's decision to hold the show. I can get mad at the governor because he's the one really allowing it to happen. Okay. So to me, it's a different ballgame at this point.
Well, here we go, Jimmy, full circle. Just tweeted within the past, since we've been recording, Submission Underground, Sunday, April 26th, undisclosed location will be live. So you can only think that perhaps if they aren't in that silo they were before, maybe they're taking advantage of Florida. And free plug for Submission Underground. Events I've been to, events you should have been able to go to, but certainly an exciting event if you ever watch them. Not sure how I feel about the tag team things that they've been working on, but other than that, we appreciate you guys checking this out. And as soon as soon, when information breaks, we will be here to cover it for you. Appreciate you checking this video out.